Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Double Dribble Show here on the Brew Sports Network. I'm Mitch Vomhoff, still pushing back against March Madness as hard as I can. I'm joined today by Jimmy Carlton. Jimmy, how you doing, buddy?
Doing well. I'm well rested.
Excellent.
I took yesterday off for a little recuperation, and I'm ready to go. You know, I got Adam Silver's memo, so yesterday wasn't as big of a as important of a game of a show. So I'm ready to go today.
The fans were very angry. I saw some tweets that did not enjoy your missing yesterday's game. But hey, listen, it's for the good of the team.
Listen, I've written a lot of really terrible hot take pieces in my life, so I've gotten a lot of hate, and it's water off my back. If that's even an expression.
Yeah. Definitely. All right. Well, we are glad to be back here with you. We've got some great topics in the NBA to cover today. We have, for the first time ever, we have here. Our friends are here. Jason Kidd.
Junior Bridgman.
And Junior Bridgman looking over us, as always. For the first time in the history of the show, we have a guest. Looking forward to that.
Yes, very exciting.
We're really going places here.
We were somehow able to, and this is just a miraculous work behind the scenes by producer Baxter, we were somehow able to book my childhood friend, part-time blogger, and a serial Bucks tweeter, Paul. So we're looking forward to having Paul later on.
Yes.
Very, very sophisticated and energetic Bucks fan, and also very big in the NBA spheres.
Great. Yes, we're looking forward to that. But in the meantime, let's get into a little bit with some of the headlines in the league this week. First off, Jimmy, this is something that actually came across my desk that I definitely have as a professional.
Grab that hot off the wire.
Was a piece in the Sporting News last week talking about a new feature of the collective bargaining agreement that was recently agreed to between the league and the players' union, obviously, in that NBA players are getting a new venue to channel their frustration about officiating.
Hotline bling.
Hotline ref.
Yeah.
That's right. NBA players will now have an opportunity after games to call into a league hotline and talk about the calls that were missed, any unprofessional behavior by officials. Jimmy, what's going on?
Do we need this? Like, long gone are the days where like there was no recourse or no outlet for athletes and for coaches and people involved in the games, right?
Yeah.
Like there is social media. We've seen players unload on social media about calls, about teammates, about things they see in the stands, good or bad. There's now the 2-minute report in the NBA, which we've talked about a little bit about this before. You know, it sort of cuts both ways. I think it's a useful idea to have transparency, but I don't think it really benefits to have the public like us being able to go back over and relitigate some of these plays. This is just another example, though, of like if you're going to have human refs, then you have to live with the human ref consequences of games, and they're going to call the games to the best of their abilities, and they're going to get some calls wrong, and Greg Popovich is going to be a jerk, and
as usual,
players are going to get upset, and I think it's just part of the game. I mean, just like there's no hotline for when Brandon Ingram goes 3 for 13 because you're mad that he couldn't hit a shot on a given night. I don't think that we need this, and I don't see how it's effective or beneficial for the league.
Yeah, I mean, this is obviously a move to kind of appease the players who, as a part of the negotiating process. I'm sure there's some pushback of the players need. There's also a movement where the players are getting more influence in the competition committee,
absolutely,
governing the rules, stuff like that. So it definitely is a.
It's a trend for sure.
It's a trend.
I'm not sure if it's a good trend.
It is. It is. Like you mentioned with the 2-minute report, you're getting a lot of information, but it's not necessarily, I would say, maybe actionable information, and especially when we're talking about players then having some feelings about an official or a play that happened or a call. I just wonder how much impact that would have. I mean, is the league then going to try to differentiate between this player just got mad versus this player had a legitimate complaint? There's a lot to litigate there, and it's definitely.
And also, it's 2017. Like, long gone are the days when we needed hotlines for things. Like, I mean, I won't get into all the various things people used to call hotlines for, but whatever you needed a hotline for, I don't think it's relevant anymore.
Yeah.
We don't need it.
That said, shout out to the Nintendo Tips hotline. Those Mortal Kombat 2 codes were clutch.
There was also I wish I could remember the name of it, but it was a hotline for Hall & Oates lyrics. You could call it. You could call this hotline and get Hall & Oates.
Hello, I forgot what the lyrics.
Like, Hotline and Oates or something like that. Yeah,
please.
And also, like, as a former low-level youth soccer referee, who every time I hear sort of complaints about homerism or bias or whatever, and you know, we had Tim Donaghy in the NBA, right? Like, we certainly had very high-profile examples of game fixing and of referees being well too aware of the stakes and the odds and trying to take advantage of that.
Yeah,
I think that it's almost unquestionable that has been taken care of and is almost entirely cleaned out from the NBA. I mean, there hasn't been a word of or sniff of sort of biased, unobjective refereeing for a decade. And I think we're moving forward organically, and we don't need to create this sort of tangential arm to increase players complaining, like have Chris Paul complain that he didn't get that third blocking foul, you know, halfway through the second quarter.
Yeah, definitely. It'll be interesting to see how this kind of initiative evolves. I really doubt that the league's ever going to say, "Oh no, we changed this thing because of a complaint that like Draymond Green called in," and you know, natural jumping motion and all that stuff. Ian down in the comments definitely agreeing. Get rid of the 2-minute report, please. He makes the very salient point that there's no need to point out the mistakes that the refs make when we can see them live. I mean, yeah, there are compilation videos of referee mistakes at this point, like we all know. So yeah, definitely.
We can litigate this on Twitter and effectively. All right, we don't need a hotline for it.
Yeah. If there's one place to do things effectively, definitely Twitter.
Right. To have your voice heard.
Speaking of
Baron
things,
Davis retweeted me like 4 days ago. So I mean,
look at you.
Clearly,
you're really making it then.
And even the smallest man can feel a little glorious for that.
Exactly. Speaking of doing things effectively,
yeah.
Serge Ibaka and Robin Lopez got into a little bit of a dust-up the other night in what might be the most cohesive NBA fight I've seen in a couple of years, which isn't to say much. I mean, they kind of just swung and missed at each other before getting pulled apart.
Yeah. Classic NBA fight.
Classic NBA fight. Hold Me Back is a part of the lexicon in a way that had never been seen before.
Well, it's a lot of like "come at me, bro," and then which usually is good posture and peacocking until someone like Kevin Garnett does come at you, and and then you turn away and run like Carmelo Anthony famously did like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Any chance we get to have a Carmelo Anthony dig, I think we have to take,
yeah.
right?
Contractually, I think we actually are
Great
supposed to do that. Yeah, so, and you know, it kind of brings up, you know, we've had some lesser melees very recently. I mean, there was you'll be surprised to know that Nick Young was in the middle of something, but we had Nick Young kind of going after a couple of Bucks, Greg Monroe going after a couple of Lakers, all that. But it's the same kind of thing where that's not really a fight. That's just dudes getting mad and kind of shoving each other and then getting broken up and then promptly getting ejected because, you know.
Well, Greg, like, okay, we promised we wouldn't talk too much Bucks until Paul gets here.
And but
to alienate
need to keep bringing it up just
29 out of 30 markets. But Greg Monroe epitomizes, I think, why these fights are both hugely entertaining and glorious to talk about and make fun of later, but still completely pointless. I mean, Greg Monroe is the ultimate, like, he's a gigantic human being who gets fouled often and will let you know on every single play that he's just getting murdered.
That he deserves a free throw.
And he's the whiniest, sort of like, you know, face what's the word I'm looking for? Just contortioning, demonstrating, demonstrative guy. And he picks fights with guys like Nick Young because they're small and it's easy. But there's never any intention to fight.
Yeah.
I thought the Curry Westbrook little feud or beef was interesting this week, right?
That was a real fun thing to watch live, especially on something as benign as a jump ball.
Yeah.
And, you know, Russell Westbrook being the insane, crazy intense person that he is, Of course he's going to get in a fight during a jump ball that he isn't even jumping on.
That's that jump ball to him was like deciding the MVP race.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that was his finals because, listen, sorry, Thunder. But I think actually Steph Curry maybe had the best response to an NBA fight that I've seen, which is immediately getting open and drilling a three and just running into the tunnel.
See you later. That's the ultimate scoreboard, and been there act like you've been there before. That was perfect. It was flawless execution, and just totally big leagued him.
And that's probably where we are in the league. Is that the old cliche is the best revenge is bettering yourself.
Yeah.
Well, the best revenge is an open Steve Curry 3-point shot. I guess.
Did you make anything out of their little war of words through the media, where Curry was asked who he thinks is MVP, he says Harden, and then Westbrook says who is he?
Yeah,
when he was told about it in regards to Steph Curry, the two-time defending MVP, arguably the most popular face of the NBA right now.
Yeah, I mean that's just a classic Russell Westbrook kind of like whatever. I'm the tough guy, just being so singularly focused and intense that I'm not surprised that Russell Westbrook would come back and say something to that effect, having to defend his honor in the way that Russell Westbrook knows how to when he's not on a basketball court, which is either A, like having a really great outfit, or B, like big timing the dude who talked bad about him. So it's just classic all the way around.
Because we don't want to condone violence
of course,
in any way.
Disclaim.
But we can in the spirit of the fact that the NBA fights are always these posturing, nothing, benign slap fights until they get pulled away instantaneously. I was going to put it to you, if there was two players in the NBA that you could choose to have a WWE Raw style melee, or
are we talking like Hell in a Cell or tables, ladders, and chairs?
Whatever.
What
I mean, you can. Yeah, okay. Chairs included.
Right.
I was thinking like a Timothy Mozgov, Kelly Olynyk kind of matchup.
Okay.
Big, tall, white guys just sort of lumbering at each other. But I don't know. Did you have anyone that you would really like to put in a ring? Or on an NBA court where they get separated instantaneously?
Yeah. I mean, I've been a big proponent of DeMarcus Cousins in a lot of ways over the last couple of years, but specifically in terms of his ability to put a man through a table. I think DeMarcus Cousins would be a very entertaining wrestler.
He seems promising at that.
Yes. We'll talk about just a crazy dude in a little bit, but Matt Barnes is a guy that I would, if I needed someone to throw a punch for me, Matt Barnes would be my guy.
Yeah,
because he's going to make sure he gets his money's worth.
Right, and that's definitely not staying in the ring. He's going to follow. He's going to drive home and follow you, and crash his car through your house.
Oh yeah.
That one cuts a little close to home. I think that might be a little too real for Matt Barnes.
No.
But yeah.
Oh, great! All
Should
right.
we move on to a sweeter topic, perhaps?
Yes. Let's talk about something that's a little bit more down home. Reminders of your childhood.
Yeah, definitely.
It turns out that we do have something in common with NBA players after all, Jimmy, in that we love peanut butter and jelly sandwiches.
We do. In fact, I was running a little bit late to the studio today because I was making my favorite.
Because you are dedicated to your craft.
I made a bomb peanut butter and jelly sandwich at home today.
Oh, did you?
I cut it into two. Should we bring it out?
Yeah,
I didn't know if it was going to be
bring out the sandwich.
Save it like a reward for later.
Yeah. Oh, hey, listen, we can.
We got through our first segment, all right? So I think here it is.
In fact, I think I might treat myself.
Oh,
with a little something here.
A peanut butter jelly sandwich.
There we go. Look at that.
All right, look, Mitch, why don't you tell me about your peanut butter and jelly sandwich before we get into why we're talking about this?
I'm a little bit of a traditionalist when it comes to the peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Obviously, I don't have the bread.
So you got a Kaiser roll there. Entirely traditional.
Yeah. Listen, I live in a bachelor pad.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just use the bread you got. Okay.
Resourceful.
But I do have a very traditional, smooth, I believe Skippy. I don't remember exactly the brand. Mm-hmm. Skippy or Jif are my two constants. And grape jelly.
That's solid.
On my sandwich.
It's really solid.
How about you, Jimmy? You seem to have brought something a little bit more upscale to the conversation.
Well, I'm a very sophisticated person with highly refined tastes.
Yes.
So in that vein, we don't need to talk about the beers that I am going to be drinking later on tonight.
Oh, no, of
completely
course.
Contradicting that point. Because we're on Brew Sportsnet, we're being shown around the world. I thought I had to make something a little nicer.
A little.
So this is a nice,
a little international
grain bread of some sort. There's nuts in there. There's seeds. There's some wheat. There is. For those of you watching home now, you can see it.
Yeah, look at that.
We'll also we'll peel back the curtain, so to speak. That's red raspberry jelly preserves, and those are bananas.
Please.
And that is Jif peanut butter.
Bananas.
Creamy,
look at
because I don't want to be spitting up nuts
in.
during the middle of our show.
Sure, of course not. We will. We do have these treats. We don't want to eat on the air for you, the viewer at home. But
a nice protein packed, high carb and sugar high pushing way for us to a little perk up for the show.
Yeah, and if you were getting ready for an NBA game, let's say, you might also enjoy
pretty much everything
peanut
you
butter
need.
jelly sandwich. There was a really phenomenal feature on a topic this benign I thought was really sensationally done in ESPN the magazine this last week, talking about the NBA's, some would call it an addiction with peanut butter and jelly sandwiches.
Yeah, like maybe the most benign and adorable addiction that has ever that any sport has ever had to deal with. This was like the talk of the NBA this week, right? Like, this Baxter Holmes
really
piece
resonated in a way that I was intrigued by.
Yeah, it really stuck around. This Baxter Holmes piece in ESPN the magazine, like, I think it was one of those things that, like, we talked about this a little earlier off mic. Like, this is the end of March. We're not quite to the playoffs. We're a little past, obviously, news of trades and All-Star. It's definitely sort of the dead down, slow news of the NBA schedule. And so why not? No better time to write like a whatever it was, like a 3,000 word feature story on
with multiple
the NBA
glamour
secret
shots
addiction
of sandwiches.
Oh yeah, like really like food porn
really
type PBJ. What was it, like slideshows showing you how to make each NBA player's
favorite sandwich,
and surprisingly there's a lot of variety. I didn't realize that. I guess.
Yeah,
I meant to mention I also put honey on mine.
Oh, geez.
So
this is some real next level sandwich.
Not
type.
to not the big league.
Not to rub your superior sandwich making in our faces, but it's speaking of fancy sandwiches, some of these teams out here in the league are offering a ton of different types of breads and all sorts of different peanut butters, almond butters, other sorts of nut butters, and really in the same way that a lot of teams have gotten into tweeting out pictures of their pregame or post-workout meals to show how committed they are to nutrition and fueling their players' bodies. Yeah. It seems like those teams are also putting that amount of effort into making sure that players have the exact sandwich that they want before the game.
Okay, like we're going to talk about, we teased this at the beginning, the memo from Adam Silver about rest and like all the science that goes into that. We're going to talk about that in the next segment. And so there's this hilarious dichotomy between of the absolute sports science and like the highest level of the most lucrative, most well-funded athletic medical technology and sports science techniques known to us humans.
Yes.
And at the same time, you have the NBA, which is adorably 5-year-old. Like the players, there was a story either this week or last week also about that was basically players love naps. I mean, that was like the thesis was NBA players love naps. They have to get their naps in. And they love peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. And, like, this is the league we cheer for. And it's also why we cheer for it. Like, can you imagine this story being written in the NFL? Like,
all the sandwiches would have concussions. So that's not.
Just creatine and HGH.
It's not. You can't. Yeah. This sandwich is spiked.
I don't know. I love this stuff. Some people, I don't know. Actually, I said some people. I don't even know. Is there anyone that was upset about this kind of story? Like, there's nothing else to talk about right now, right?
Yeah, you need.
Which is why we're talking about it.
Yeah, which is why we just spent 5 minutes on a sports show talking about sandwiches. But yeah, I mean, my kind of last thing here is I really appreciate the relatability of the NBA in a way that a lot of other leagues aren't, because I also love naps,
right?
And I also love peanut butter and jelly sandwiches.
NBA players, they're just like us.
But yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're just like us, but 6 inches taller and can dunk a basketball.
And much, much richer.
Yeah, well, we're getting there. All right.
Another social trend?
Another social
we have
trend,
time
Jimmy.
to talk about another social
Let's
trend?
hit this one social trend, and then we'll get to a topic that I really want to talk about. But you go ahead and
All right.
introduce.
Well, real quick, another thing that is another story that came out this week that I can really identify with. The decline of going out in the NBA, like
Sure.
the decline of the J.R. Smith nightclub binge.
As
where-
and I mean, as the sports science gets
Well,
a little more
right.
advanced, we realize how important
Yeah.
rest is for players.
I would have imagined that like the sports scientists of like the 70s, 80s, and 90s would have also said, maybe don't go out to the club until 5 when you play the next day. But
Yeah, maybe.
But now we know with data. All right, welcome back from our break. We didn't make any new peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. We're going to stick with the ones
Jimmy
we
ate
have.
like 3 of them.
I had a few beers, but we're going to have these sandwiches after the show. Thanks for sticking with us. We now are going to be welcoming on our first ever guest. Very excited to have him. He's my childhood friend. I've known him since the day I was born. He's a semi-occasional Bucks blogger, a Zach LaVine 2016 NBA dunk contest truther, and a absolutely one of the best Twitter follows you can find, Paul Gagne.
Hello there. Thanks
Paul, are you
for having
there?
me on. I am. Can you hear me now?
How's it going, man? Thanks for joining us.
It's going great. Happy Friday.
We've been trying to make this work for a while. Are you okay to talk about Bucks? I'm not sure if you've been following the season much this year.
I've caught a couple games here and there.
That's all we ask. Perfect.
Probably about 71, or that's the right amount. So 71. They've played 71 games so far, and I think I've watched at least part of all of them. So.
All right.
Well,
That's great because we now are going to ask you about the Bucks this year. So let's start out. I mean, the Bucks obviously a topic of some national media attention actually, with being on a hot streak, surging their way up the playoff ranks, and now of course tonight heading into a reasonably significant matchup with the Atlanta Hawks.
Well, Nick Vile's going to be there, the Bachelor. So
Yes, the
that's why it's
Bachelor
important.
will also be there.
He's coming home. But besides that, obviously the team that the Bucks are chasing in the Eastern Conference playoff race.
But most importantly, I would say that Paul Millsap will not be there, which is why I like the Bucks' chances tonight. He is regularly a major problem for them on the offensive and defensive ends. He's one of those really strong yet agile enough, crafty guys who does give Giannis some trouble.
Yeah, for sure.
And sometimes can goad Giannis into like lowering the shoulder too much and doing the famous Giannis blow through the line offensive foul.
That emerging classic.
That's right.
Right up there with the Euro step,
I mean,
really.
Yeah, it's definitely my favorite foul in the league, but still.
yeah, definitely. So obviously tonight is an important matchup, but also the Bucks have a really interesting remaining schedule as it regards maybe playoff seeding, who they're going to match up against. Paul, what is your feeling about how the Bucks end up this season and kind of where they might line up when the playoff seedings are finalized?
So I think that they're in great spot right now to steal the 5th spot. I think that we're probably looking at 5th, 6th, or 7th. They, it's hard to even quantify them right now because they're so on fire, and that probably won't continue, except that the Heat showed us that absolutely it can. And so, so maybe there's only 3 games left on their schedule that they should lose, for lack of a better word. And one of them is the end of the season against Boston, who could be done at that point. Yeah. So, expecting them to win, potentially go 7-4 would be, I think, realistic. And I think that leaves them out of having to play the Cavs in the first round.
Paul, I can hear you again. I have a working headset, so that's good. Although
that's
I feel like I was able to hear you in my heart. Although it was also sort of being able to hear you through Mitch's earphones.
I'm being more rational than our usual conversation.
Yeah, you're a little more toned down than I think some of your Twitter followers would recognize. But you alluded to this a little bit. So and it's interesting because Mitch, you and I talked about this last week, even a week obviously in advance, and this was in the midst of of the Bucks' road trip out west that turned out to be very good, 4-2, probably their best West Coast road trip in as long as we can remember, for sure.
Since 1989, I read.
Oh,
wow.
Thank you for doing our research, our fact checker there.
We were born, but barely. So
the Bucks have they have about 2/3 of their games remaining on the road, but also 2/3 of those games are against teams under 500. It's interesting that they're now playing this Hawks team that has sort of been treading water while everyone else below them has either been rising fast, like you mentioned the Hawks. Obviously, the Bucks have been the hottest team in the NBA. And the Pacers, I guess the Pacers are sort of doing the same thing, and then you've got the Pistons and the Bulls doing very Pistons and Bulls things, which is to say being terrible. Do you actually think that the Bucks are going to be able to catch and pass the Hawks? And more importantly than that, does that make a difference playing that 4 seed rather than that 3 seed?
So to answer your first question, it's still unclear to me how the Hawks were as good as they were.
Mm-hmm.
I am not.
Paul Millsap like epitomizes their whole team. Why are they good?
Well,
why is he good?
Well, he's good because he does everything pretty well.
Yeah.
But I'm not a Schroeder fan. I have liked what I've seen from Dwight Howard this year, but I think that his pick and roll numbers are down a little bit in the second half since him and Schroeder kind of had that falling out, which is absolutely the only way he should be used on offense ever under any circumstances at this point. And
hey, he's still allowed to dunk.
He's really good at that. It's just it's a great skill. Just be DeAndre. Don't try and think that you're still Shaq.
We need to get they need to get him the ball in somehow.
Yeah, but not when he's not moving.
Right.
Just don't do that.
Does it matter? Okay, so I guess to answer to sort of look closer at that question, you have to look at who is above them at that 4 seed and that 3 seed, right? I mean, do you think Toronto's holding that 4 spot, or are they making moves toward the 3? I thought ESPN's BPI has them moving to the 3 because of an easier schedule than Washington. I think Washington's playing some great basketball. I don't, and without Lowry, I don't feel like that jump is going to be happening.
Well, Washington's lost 4 of 6. I just read today, which surprised me, but that kind of explains it. I would prefer that the Bucks play Washington to Toronto. Mm-hmm. Toronto just always kills us when Lowry's there, and PJ Tucker, along that Paul Millsap corollary I just described, is that type of defender, except way meaner. And I don't think that that's who I mean, it would probably be a good learning experience for Giannis, but I'd rather win a couple games.
Okay, we talked about this a little before you even got on. We were talking about NBA fights, which, of course, aren't really fights. They're slap fests until they get pulled away. If you had to pick one player...
Except for one time.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Rudy Tomjanovich?
Okay, 2 times.
Okay. Wait, what's the one you're talking about?
Well, I'm talking about when Ron Artest fought the city of Detroit.
You mean okay? When he punched regular people.
When Steven
if you had to
Jackson
pick one person on the
man.
Bucks to get in a fight with Serge Ibaka, who holds up the best in that one-on-one?
Oh, see, I was going to go in a different direction. Greg Monroe is the answer.
No, it's not Greg Monroe. All right, we got to move on. You and I can argue about this later.
But John Henson is the answer of who I want to, because he might break his hand, and then we wouldn't have to play him anymore.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's back out of the rotation. Okay. All right. I told you in advance that we'd give you a chance to wax poetic about Giannis. Can you tell us anything about Giannis, or describe him in a way from you're like one of the most diehard Bucks fans I know of, a lot of diehard Bucks fans I know. Can you tell us why Bucks fans and Bucks media sometimes sort of take Giannis for granted or take the Bucks for granted? Given the fact that they have this player, Giannis, on the team?
Yeah, I mean, I think that he does things that I've never seen anyone else do on a basketball court. And anytime that's happening, whether that be, JaVale McGee throwing a dunk attempt into the 15th row, or Giannis, dunking from the free throw line in a game, or, completely incorporating the double pump dunk as an actual move of utility rather than just a show off. Mm-hmm. And I think that his defense is consistently underrated in local and national media. I think that he's finally being not put in the situation where he has to save the day constantly now. And we're seeing kind of some of those really unbelievable help blocks that he can put together. I also think that he's taking the next step in blocking shots, which for me is trying to block it to a teammate rather than just throwing it into the third row.
Right.
A step that
the
many
Dwight Howard block.
Yeah, a step that many shot blockers never take. So I do think that his defense right now is like the underrated part of his game, even though people are like, oh, steals and blocks. He's better than that,
right,
in my opinion. He scares people away from the paint in a way that, point guards don't do. And I know that that's somewhat problematic just to call him a point guard, but he is still.
Well,
he has the ball all the time.
One of the things that Giannis has done this year is we know what Giannis is in transition on offense, right? I mean, Giannis is the most artful and effective and beautiful gravity-defying player in transition when he has the ball because he can dunk from 45 feet away. But
right.
the thing this year is, like you're saying, transition defense, he is just as valuable, and it's completely underrated because he is that guy who opponents hear footsteps. They know he's coming.
Yep.
They know he's timing. They know he's waiting, and he's going to block it or he's going to disrupt that shot somehow. We can't really discuss Giannis without discussing the other face of the franchise who's no longer playing right now. Jabari Parker has been out since mid-February. The Bucks have gone 14-5 without him. They've been one of the best teams in the league since Jabari Parker went down. That has coincided with the return of Chris Middleton, who we'll talk about in a minute, because I know Paul and I want to talk about Chris Middleton as much as possible. But Paul, and I guess Mitch, you and I should talk about this as well. Hi,
it's me. Hi.
Are the Bucks better without Jabari Parker as a unit, as a team?
I mean, that I'm not willing to say that until you see the Bucks with Jabari Parker and Chris Middleton together. Because I think Chris Middleton is undeniably a huge impact on that team, and is maybe every bit as much a key of that stellar play over the last month as pretty much anyone else on the team. And it's super unfortunate for the Bucks that they have not seen that unit together for more than a couple of minutes this year.
Like 6 minutes.
yeah, like 6 minutes. And it's such a tragedy. This is the third show in a row we've brought this up, but that was a real tragedy. I wouldn't go as far as to say is they're better without Jabari. They might be better with Chris Middleton than Jabari, but they also might be better with both than with one.
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with all of that. It's more about Middleton than it is about Jabari. But I will say they're better defensively without Jabari, and that's an undeniable fact. I am not one who prescribes to the Jabari Parker's defense can't be fixed school. I think that I just think that anybody who has a good attitude about defense can play solid defense eventually. If Luis Scola can be a rim protector, Jabari Parker can get in the way and play in a system. But I mean, I think that there's some truth to both sides. Like, Jabari's probably not quite as much of a net positive as we would like to think he is at this point. But Chris Middleton's the most underrated. But Chris Middleton's the most underrated player in the NBA. He was our best player. He was our best player last year. It's a lot closer than people are pretending right now between him and Giannis, because he's. I mean, Jimmy and I were texting about this last night. That post up, whenever he gets a small guy on him, he gets that shot and he makes it like 70% of the time.
Yeah, Chris Mannix.
I was going to say 100, but it's not true.
Chris Mannix wrote for The Vertical an article about the most underrated player in the NBA this year, and he wrote about Avery Bradley and considered Middleton for that story.
Right up there, yeah.
But I think the crux of it is obviously, like you said, Mitch. You want both these. You want that core. That is what the Bucks have been building around for the last 2 years. Is those three guys, and that's what they made a lot of their personnel moves around. The thing is, with Jabari, you can replace Jabari. Like Jabari has characteristics,
painful words to hear.
and strengths that you can replace more easily than Chris Middleton, who I think last year, even with Giannis's rise at the end of the season, Chris Middleton was undeniably the most valuable in terms of value on the team.
He was the best Buck.
He was the best player.
And
maybe not the last 15 games, but over the course of the season for sure.
Yeah. Defensively, we've seen him be able to be a playmaker. We've seen him make shots. We've seen him be the clutch scorer that they need, that they really don't have otherwise. And Paul, you and I were talking about this. I have not seen a guy that is smoother in his super slow, like he is effectively slow.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
he does everything at a James Harden pace until James Harden gets inside when he explodes past people. But he just is like monotonous and very calculated and methodical, and it's like almost it's kind of like sexual. It's kind of arousing.
Oh, all right. I've always I've heard the comparison. I really like it that Chris Middleton has a lot of Joe Johnson in his game, especially maybe later day Joe Johnson, who just like knew he was going to make the shot, so why would I hurry? Because I'm just going to make the shot. But I see a lot of similarity there, and Middleton might actually end up being more effective than 7-time All-Star Joe Johnson by the time we're done. But yeah, stylistically, those two have a lot in common.
I have a quick question for Mitch because I know the answer to this for Jimmy. Do you remember when Chris Middleton couldn't dribble? Because I do, and it's so.
Do you remember when I literally wrote on a blog that Chris Middleton was super overrated like 2.5 years ago? Because I wrote that, so yeah, I remember.
2 years ago, I wrote that. Oh my gosh, this is happening. Chris Middleton's like actually like a really good starter, and he's so far surpassed that at this point. It was like starting to consider, is Chris Middleton part of the future? And then, oh my gosh, actually, it's way more than that.
The Chris Middleton rise from trade throw-in to like maybe most valuable player on a team is super remarkable. So.
And
on a playoff team.
And Paul, 2 months ago, you wrote "Appease the Bees" on Twitter, and it's taken off like wildfire.
It has taken off like wildfire on both your and my accounts.
Right. Whoa. I'm going to give you a chance to yell "Appease the Bees" before we have to move on.
Oh, well, I can't yell. Actually, I'm still in my office. So.
Can you just say it the way you say it?
Appease the bees.
Thanks a lot, Paul. And thanks for putting up with our technical difficulties. We really appreciate it, man.
All right, thanks, guys. Can't
Paul,
wait
where
to
can
be
we
back.
find you on Twitter?
You can find me at the Kids Table, spelled with 2 Ds.
Like Jason Kidd.
And with 2 Ds. And I will be tweeting tonight about the Bucks and maybe even about the Badgers, although they make me a little too nervous. So
Excellent.
I might have to put the phone down for that.
All right. Better be watching that U.S. men's national team, too.
Yeah, DVR all the way.
All right. Well,
see you, man.
Thanks much,
All right.
Paul.
Bye.
All right.
All right. Well, that was our first guest.
There we go. Hey, listen, man. This is
how about that?
Shows going places.
We've got
awesome.
correspondents now. That's our Madison-based correspondent.
There we go.
Our Madison, his office-based correspondent, apparently.
All right.
It's too bad. I was really hoping Paul was going to yell "Appease the Bees." He's done that so many
you caught
times.
him at a bad time. You can't listen. If I yelled at my office, I'd get in trouble. So I understand.
Yeah.
That's fine.
All right. Well, let's move on to our regular segment of Make or Miss.
Yes. We got some good ones this
we've
week.
got
I'm
some
really
good ones.
excited.
We don't have nearly as many
you.
as last week, so we should be able to get through these.
Really hack through it. All right.
So I'm going to start with you.
Okay.
All right. Two-way contracts.
Yeah, two-way contracts. A new
Two-way
addition
contracts
to the collective bargaining
A
agreement.
new thing in the CBA, right?
Yes.
Are they a win-win for teams and players the way they're being projected to be?
Generally, yeah. I like two-way contracts a lot. For those that maybe aren't necessarily in the know, a two-way contract is basically a new feature of the collective bargaining agreement wherein a team can sign a player to a specific contract that allows them to shuttle to and from the D-League for developmental purposes, while also maybe not being part of the 15-man roster, or there being specific roster spots carved out for these two-way players. And I think this, it helps teams keep young, promising players that they want to develop, but it also, in conjunction with some adjustments to the pay grade in the D-League, allows players to not have to choose between going undrafted and playing over in Europe. So it lets them stay around closer to teams that they would actually end up playing for, and it also lets the teams keep a better eye on these developmental players, because the D-League right now is it's cohering in a way, but it's still kind of a mess in terms of call-ups and assignments and stuff like that. So I think this definitely clarifies some of that movement, and also lets teams be a little bit more flexible in their approach. So that's a make for me.
It's a make. It does seem like the most fair version of that D-League contract.
Yeah, I definitely
has always
agree.
Felt a little unfair for a while.
Yeah, for sure. All right, your turn, Jimmy.
Yeah.
Make or miss, James Harden has become the front runner for the MVP.
Okay, miss for me. Seems like a make for basically everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
Like the narrative now over the last week, because Harden had a couple of really great games, which although if we're just like sort of taking the temperature every couple days of whoever of the top four has a great game, it's going to be a very whimsical ride to this eventual award announcement. For me, it's still Russell Westbrook. I know that is like becoming less in vogue of a choice because it's like the anti-smart NBA fan of, well, you're just saying that because he's averaging triple-double. And I think we're getting away from the fact that forever, I mean, even now, like, sports are built on statistics. Like, it's not just the fact that he's averaging those magical numbers. Like, we've made a big deal about Oscar Robertson averaging triple-double for 40 years because it's an incredible accomplishment.
Yeah,
and
sure.
and then the sort of subsidiary argument against Westbrook is that he's playing for a bad team, which is complete crap because he's playing for a team that is contending for one of the 5, 6, or 7.
Yeah, they're going to be a
spot in
playoff
the
team.
West.
It's not like,
and that team is the Nets, like we said last week, without him. So I won't rehash my whole argument from last week, but I still think it's Westbrook. I get Harden has been so efficient, so effective. He had 39 points against the Nuggets a few days ago, and just like was the best player. He was Michael Jordan for the last 3 or 4 minutes of that game.
oh yeah, just
I think Kawhi's fallen off the radar a little bit, and I think LeBron with like the rest stain and sort of that narrative has changed a little bit.
Yeah, I think we're definitely going from maybe a 4-way race to a closer 2-way race, I would say. I think Harden maybe isn't overtaking, but definitely kind of closing the gap, at least narratively.
Yeah. It'll be interesting because
in the MVP discussion.
Sorry to cut you off.
No,
I do feel like it's like two very competing camps. It's like the guys who are like the smart basketball guys who are denigrating Westbrook for really just being really good at basketball.
Yeah.
And then there's the people who are like, well, he's still the most valuable player on a team.
Look at what he's doing with all that usage.
And like I said last week, like his storyline is valuable to the league, depending on how you define value, whether it's just value to the best 2 teams and who's the best player on the best team. I think Westbrook is still deserving of it. But I'll say a miss on Harden as the front runner.
All right, that's fair.
We've got a follow-up for that. So a corollary to that,
right.
we haven't talked about the Coach of the Year award much.
Yeah.
James Harden, I say product of the system. That system is Mike
Sure.
D'Antoni. Is Mike D'Antoni now the front runner for the Coach of the Year job or Coach of the Year award?
He's definitely up there. I mean, part of I think what I personally think what makes a good coach is taking the players you have and fitting them into a system that fits them well. And he's certainly done that. I mean, the Murray ball kind of 3-pointers and layups offensive system is obviously producing some pretty amazing results down in Houston. Having James Harden to lead that attack definitely helps. It benefits him, and I think it benefits the team. I'm somewhat of a Greg Popovich apologist. I think until the day the Spurs fall out of the championship race, he's probably going to be up there. Whether it's
so sick of Greg
whether
Popovich.
It's at some point it's just becoming his name recognition is just we just expect Greg Popovich to be one of the best coaches in the league, so he's always going to get those votes. But D'Antoni is probably getting to be as deserving as Popovich is.
Who would you say is also in that running? I mean, Spoelstra, Scotty
Eric
Brooks.
Spoelstra has the problem of not having a great team, but he's done really great things with the Miami Heat. So I think he's definitely up there. Steve Kerr is still going to – actually, maybe not anymore now that the Warriors have encountered a couple of problems. But part of what comes with being the best team in the league is if you keep it up, your coach is probably going to be a contender for Coach of the Year. So I think probably a bit among those guys, probably those 4 guys, you're gonna see something. But I think D'Antoni and Popovich are still going to end up at the top.
Boo Popovich, but all right.
All right. Moving on. We do still have to talk a little bit about the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, it's going on.
It's going on. It's kind of a big deal. Make or miss. Kansas's Josh Jackson. Obviously lottery pick, doing some actually great things in the tournament. But is he the prospect that has boosted his draft stock the most so far in the tournament?
That's
this
a make for me.
That is a make.
That is absolutely
hold that gooseneck. There you go. All right.
That is absolutely a make. A little bit of a cheat. I'm admitting that I wrote that question and asked you to ask me it. So
oh no, we're going behind the curtain.
Really behind the curtain there.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah, I mean Josh Jackson was the guy that I was looking at as one of 2 with Tatum and for Duke as a guy that had the most potential to move up because you have your top 2, maybe 3 spots already sort of solidified. Very excited to watch Lonzo Ball tonight against Kentucky playing
that's
against
a huge game.
Legit
Check that out.
Kentucky defenders like De'Aaron Fox. But Josh Jackson has just been efficient, effective. He's been as athletic as advertised. He had 23 points against Michigan State in the second round. He had 15 and 12 against Purdue. Like I'm looking at what is that? Probably he's averaging like 19 and 8 through the tournament, and he's carrying a Kansas team that needed a leader. I mean, they've got a lot of talent. He's become that alpha dog that I think that he's probably pushed himself into 4-3. Four or three spot in the draft.
Yeah, the most recent Draft Express mock draft does have Josh Jackson moved up to number 3.
Perfect. Validated.
So he is peaking, kind of probably at the right time, barring like the combine, which people tend to rise and fall on. But yeah, I mean, he's definitely up there. Going to be a top 5 pick, obviously, but maybe solidifying that now.
All right, I've got one for you.
All right, let's go.
Larry Sanders.
Larry Sanders. All caps. Exclamation
That's how
point.
excited. That's how excited you get when you talk about Larry Sanders.
Blowing it out because Larry Sanders back in the league, huh?
I mean, apparently. So make or miss, he just got called up from the D League by the Cavs, sort of by accident. Is he going to
I hit the wrong button. Larry Sanders is coming back now.
Is he going to impact the playoff race? Because he's obviously going to play. They brought him in for a reason. Is he make or miss? He's going to impact the playoffs.
I can't. The Larry Sanders corollary to never trust the Bucks is never trust Larry Sanders.
Yeah.
As much as I love the guy, obviously he had that amazing campaign with the Bucks, followed by a real rough downfall. The Cavs need a center. I mean, we talked about Andrew Bogut, who literally immediately got hurt after the Cavaliers signed him. I feel like the
Cavs are going to sign like Dan Gedzerich next. They just keep signing old Bucks centers.
He's probably playing in Europe somewhere, isn't he?
Oh, yeah, he's definitely back in the Netherlands.
But I think Larry Sanders is definitely going to play. I just can't convince myself that he is back in basketball shape and ready to meaningfully impact a playoff series. Like he could impact a couple of games leading up to the playoffs, and I'm sure he's going to get some run as the Cavs try to integrate him into that unit, getting into it. But rotation shortened up in the playoffs.
That's true.
He's probably going to be on the fringe of theirs anyways. He'll be the breaking case of emergency center. Hey, listen, I've been proved wrong before. Like, Larry Sanders could come back and block 7 shots in a game and just be the catalyst for a Cavs championship run, but I can't see that right now.
Well, unless he works his way into being in the rotation, it's hard for a guy who doesn't have an offensive game to really get like consistent, steady minutes, because you're not going to bring a guy in who just defensive rebound and block for 4 minutes a game. Like you bring that guy in as instant offense. You need Larry Sanders to sort of be patrolling the paint regularly.
Yeah, for sure, definitely. So we'll see. Despite what I said, I am going to be super interested in what Larry Sanders does.
Yeah, we're all cheering
keep
for him.
an eye on that. All right. With that said, it is time for us to wrap up. Jimmy, there's a couple things that you thought we should look for this weekend. What should we look for as we plan out our sports watching weekend?
A couple things to look for. Is Matt Barnes actually going to kill the Kings? He said he was going to, and
hey, listen,
Warriors
I would take
Kings.
that kind of fight. So
obviously Bucks Hawks is big for us, and we've got Kentucky,
The Bachelor.
UCLA.
I'm sure they'll have shots of The Bachelor in case, ladies. He'll be there. I don't know.
Maybe he needs his 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th shot at love
off camera because I have some concerns. But yeah, definitely. My game that I'm going to be watching this weekend is a Memphis Golden State matchup on Sunday evening. I think that's going to be an interesting potential playoff matchup that could be super informative for going forward in the playoffs. So definitely keep an eye on that. The NCAA tournament is still obviously going on. There's some great games going on tonight.
That's definitely something to watch.
Yep. Wisconsin's playing. If you like Wisconsin, Jimmy, you're killing me, man. All right. That is going to be it for the Double Dribble show for this week. Thank you, everyone, for watching. We need to end this show so Jimmy can eat the sandwich. He can't wait. But thank you, everyone, very much for watching. You can find me on Twitter at Mitch Vomhoff. You can find him on Twitter
at JimmyCarlton88.
At JimmyCarlton88. You can find everything we do on Twitter at Bruce Sportsnet, or on Facebook, look up Bruce Sports. Thank you very much. We'll be back with you next week for more NBA content. Jimmy, enjoy your sandwich.
Thank you.